Jupiter point of Thales Shirley here. And this is a series of notes for pitches for intergalactic um, real estate projects. Now, real estate is going to be very different because mostly we will be flying around. That's basically. And in the previous section, I was thinking together with you. Um, and I always begin with the fact that when we talk about investments, then the saying that millionaires don't work with astrology, billionaires do. So, as a person that use their welfare time to develop astrological skills, I apply. And that's not with the intention to necessarily become a billionaire because the currency on space matters less than the currency on Earth. But to get to space, we do need investments. And the investment is, first of all, of time, of dedication, of listening, of ideas, of tending to things. So, my previous episode tended to the, the things that we need to purge when we think of something that would stand the test of time, and the fact that unlike what we believe, it's not like we're not going to see yields to our investments as we invest them, simply because one of the things we are purging is flesh and blood sacrifice, as well as psychic or ritual sacrifice, or what people like to call satanic ritual abuse or ritual abuse. Okay, satanic is very local. Think about more global. We're simply not going to have time, Saturn, to do that. Okay, this is not about morality. I'm not here to judge anybody's uh, um, reasoning for doing things, but it's not something we're going to have time. And by the way, as we purge that, we no longer need that as humanity. Our wealth increases, and when I say wealth increases, we're gonna have what we need as we need it, um, and that is the wisdom of Aquarius. So, as going from astrological point of view to the age of air, where things are moving faster, and we're going to have to honor the yin, so we're going to have to hold for our existence within that. And in space is actually good because when we talk about air, the compatibility of the yin to that yang is space. Now this is Sun hour, which is fantastic because Sun in astrology, it rules both the source of light that we need, the energy, okay, to sustain in space, and it is also ruling art. And I left my last episode with the thinking about the structures where we're going to be, and the fact that our attempts to do androgynous beings ended with plenty of suicide, and the antidote to the longevity that we were trying to bring, where and not only that, that in extreme climates we actually have an extreme storms or nuclear. We think about an asteroid clashing into Earth. We think about a nuclear bomb. This is exactly the thing. So while we're like, hey, we want to denucleify the Earth, and I was also in terms of politics, hey, we need to denucleify. There's peace on Earth. I was like, yeah, but we also need to understand what is an asteroid colliding into a star, and that is nuclear bomb is the closest. And when we saw in Chernobyl, the place was evacuated, and we saw that there was lush forest, and extinct species began to grow, and they began to polarize, so to procreate with sexual polarity. So we're basically going to predict an increase in sexual polarity. A good teaching of humanity at times of crisis that they tend to fall in love more. So as the baby boomers, there was the baby boomers of COVID and so on. People just intend to fall in love more and they procreate more. That's the natural course of things. So we also have to be prepared for that. Another thing is we cannot allow ourselves to lose too many humans. And this is where slavery, for example, while when it comes to, I'm looking at peers like Elon Musk, who is building a colony on Mars, and looking at and founding a country, and I'm very, very inspired and learn from what he does. Um, and so he was thinking to put people that are in debt to, let's say, work on Mars. In terms of sustaining humanity, we cannot allow ourselves to lose many people. So while I don't negate the notion that some projects will act like this and everybody will do their projects their own way, um, we are at the times where I'm starting the projects relative to when Elon starts a project. Um, it is time where we actually purging slavery because we become more decentralized and more yin and yang balanced. And this is fantastic, fantastic. So let's work with something that brings in Aquarius, Deneb Algedy, and Taurus, and Uranus in Taurus, which is connecting the air and and the ground and the groundwork to go, okay, for space. And this is talisman I made with the Deneb Algedy and Uranus. It's limited. If you want to me to send you some of that, then that is okay. You can contact me, and I can send you some of that. I will need to cover the shipping. And if you want to donate for me to have more talismans as I go, that is fantastic. If you want the teaching of how and when to make elections, follow my channel, and I will give you what the teachings. Okay. Because it's different from any traditional talisman making, simply because we're making something in conditions that are changing conditions. Just because I live on welfare and because I don't have like a abundance of wealth behind me, I actually am closer to those conditions, to those entrepreneurial, innovative, new conditions that are not allowing for the rituals that we used to have. I talked about it also in previous episode. So let's work with that oil. To be very honest, I don't remember what I put there. I know that there was some. I put a lot of. There's olive oil. It's actually Druzy olive oil. It's actually real olive oil, and I had the honor to buy that. And there is some eucalyptus, some lotus, I think, some rose, some rosewood, which is balancing all essential oils in olive oil. It's a jar, and I put it on the skin. Okay, very much inspired by the work of Sphere and Sundry, by the way, that they did the Temamundi, and they needed to do things also in a non-traditional way because you cannot blend rocks. Okay, you can blend rocks, but not in their conditions that they had. So as well, I just did an oil, and this is creating um, a union of tensions. Okay, a holding a tension, and that tension right now is very much needed to hold, and it's a tension between the yin and yang. It's the tension between the yin and yang in the fixed axis of astrology. It's the tension between the architecture that stands the test of time and the quickness of the air and the rest of the earth. So Uranus is actually not considered in a good position in Taurus because that's an earth sign and a fixed earth sign. That's the sign that doesn't move, and Uranus is about moving things. It's actually this conjoining of earth and air that contributes to um, the booming of ideas when we think about to get a stagnant earthbound humanity into intergalactic space in a way that is actually good. And abolishing slavery is a great time. And it's not about the morality even. We look at the very big picture, look at humanity level picture. It's just about sustaining the yin and yang, this good and bottom micro and a macro level. And it's not about sustaining, but actually creating. It's almost from scratch when we talk about what we need to go intergalactic. And so, what we're going to need, we're not going to be able to lose a lot of people, and that what we're going to need is actually the people that have the spark of life that they want to try something new. So, uh, I addressed the importance of projects like Housing First and an on-earth pitch to a place that will provide housing first. A lot of the people that we think we need to provide housing for, they don't want to work, they this, none of that. They have been targeted individuals. Now, what that means is when you build such project, you allow them to speak and you allow them to rest, they begin to have the ideas that if they go to work now, they will have such ideas that will stand the test of time, so much so that they can sustain humanity, that whatever alien we communicate with aliens, whatever they tell us, but those people, they know better. And so it is, that's the Pluto. It's what we think is the it's like, oh, that part in society is not functioning, there's nothing to do with them. No, here therein lies the wealth. um, so and this is continuing on from the previous episode. So continuing on from the previous episode, we're going to be very likely flying in small structures that can sustain storms and tsunamis on Earth, tsunamis, because they have to lift off. I was thinking about sphere structures um, way back in 2009, 2007, when there was the question of tsunamis, and I was thinking about using the surrounding quickness, which is going to be even more um, fascinating on Earth, but we're going to have to transmit gravity waves into all of this is, of course, all that you hear is, of course, is mine. So all rights reserved. It's not that it's not like, oh, it's my patent, you cannot develop that. No, it's just that, first of all, because I'm the one thinking about those ideas, so I will know to tell you more things about that. It's not that you cannot develop that. Um, and also when we think about going intergalactically, we're not like what we know about currency right now and wealth is changing. But the notion is that it is mine, and therefore you cannot patent that to exclusivity. What I love about Elon Musk is that he doesn't do that. I'm in that spirit. Um, so it doesn't allow to exclusively practice. Everybody can use that. And I'm inspired by Elon Musk to solve the patents and ideas question in that sense as well. So of course it's my ideas. I will always be allowed to talk about my ideas. Okay, but even when I no longer exist, I'm still existing in the electromagnetic gravity wave system. Um, and so we're going to be using gravity waves to power our structures, spherical structures, in such a way that when something comes to strike, okay, from our perspective, strike is not strike; it's just a force of energy. We can, in an almost Eastern martial arts way, collect that energy and move with the sphere around. Now that means we're going to have an Earth-like structure where the outside is moving very fast, but for the inside we are going to sense it like we sense it on Earth, and that is more stability than we do. I think that working on preserving the gravitational um, relations on Earth within those spheres is worth it. And when we are going to power these structures by using those gravitational waves and storms, let's say we're going to Jupiter, so there's a lot of storms on Jupiter. We might be able to achieve a sphere that has life very, very similar to Earth. Now, those spheres can't be too small; they can't be too claustrophobic. It has to be, in fact, so much so they're going to be small in relation to, let's say, planet Earth, but they have to be so much so big that people are going to ask themselves, is it flat or is it a sphere? And this is what I understand now. It's going to be small in relation to Earth. So we're basically lifting off a city from the ground. A couple of cities. Now, those cities are going to be kind of like a global village, but we're lifting them from the ground. So the basis is to build something like this on ground, and we are going to need to have a lot of space between the houses. Okay, the point is that the experience of the people who will live there is going to be an improved experience to the experience of people who live on Earth. Because they are going to ask themselves, is it a flat disk or is it a sphere? It's going to be so spacious that that is actually going to be a cosmological question for these people as well. And this is not because we want to keep the people stupid, it's because we cannot allow ourselves with Aquarius to sacrifice space. And this is also how we maintain a yin and yang balance, because we're gonna have booming populations as well. Okay, and this is also why it's important to abolish slavery, because humanity is not going to survive with slavery. Every and going back to Elon Musk grew in South Africa, and whatever you think about him, he actually knows and he witnessed the times where there was okay, when there is slavery, then people don't sustain. It's not if you enslave you don't sustain, and if you're slave you don't sustain. This is why he worked so hard on his projects. It was the spark of life where he wanted to do what he desires to do. It comes with his vision to have people that have this spark of life. And my prediction is that for Elon Haben, albeit the challenges in his childhood, and not because of them necessarily. So this is something to keep in mind. It's the spark of life that actually the better nourishing life that we have, the more a spark of life people have, and they do it they blend into the galactic nervous system in a more compatible way. You think about the children in Finland. The child naturally wants to go and play outside. It's cold. It's this. It's that. You want to think about your pets. Okay, this is why having pets is very important. Think about your pets is in the house. Okay, it snows outside. Okay, F it. Okay, they want to roll in the snow. Children are quite the same, most of them, and so you think about it's going to be cold, but you're not going to survive, but you're not going to do this with nothing. Okay, if you're in Finland, you have good clothes. Your infant is resting in the snow and in the wind, and they learn to enjoy this, and they sleep very well. Okay, so it's not about putting them to harsh conditions. They want to go outside, they want to play, they have the spark of life, and we have to innovate around that so that we will not lose them to the spark of life. When we do practice slavery, or when we practice forced upbringing of population, okay, what people colloquially call rape, but also stealing sperm, okay, that's very important, then we are losing that spark of life. And whatever alien societies or practices or something like that, if we want to go as humanity, then we want to reconnect to the spark of life that's going to allow us to blend into the galactic nervous system better, and become more adaptable and think of ideas. And the competitions that we have on Earth, the survivalist competitions, intergalactically, it's like a drop of poison diluted into the ocean of oceans. Okay, the power relations, the survivalistic questions that we have, we're simply not going to have them. We are in the 300 years of ushering us to Age of Aquarius. You think about the northern countries, so you want to think about the Finns versus the Inuit. The difference between the Finns and the Inuit is has to do with good yin and yang balance. They do have Pluto square Venus, which is not benefic, but other than that, they have a moon in Taurus. They have one of the best moons. Okay, usually we don't have for declarations of independence, whether it's kingdom or not, we don't have good position of the moon. Actually, having good position of the moon allows the community to sustain. Everybody learns from Finland. Putin has his eye on Finland. Finland joined NATO with far relative ease than Ukraine, for example. And the relation between, let's say, men and women is something to learn from. Not saying everything is fantastic and so on, but definitely that's a community that managed to sustain in very harsh weathers, honoring both rest and work, but with that spark of life. The children want to play outside, even these very harsh climates, and we are having a lot to learn from them, and perhaps assist the Inuit culture that is very much suffering. We are going to go into it when we're going into space. Now let's talk about the what will be. You think about people traveling. You think about the travel, the journey, because we're going to be traveling a lot, and one of the things that are going to be very important at that time is music, films, and so on, and art. Even if you go back to shamanic traditions, then the medicine of the shaman. Have you danced enough? Have you were you singing enough? Did you play, child play enough? Yeah, were you moving your body? It's not that you're going to the gym and they're like, I'm doing 50 squats, okay, burpees, so you look like a frog. There's nothing wrong with that if you enjoy that, but the shamanistic tradition for that, were you singing enough? Were you dancing enough? Did you take the time to make love? Okay, that is how you would heal a person. So think about before our daily struggles, we're going back to the basis, and the climate was harsh. Now, if you are living in the snow, but still, in Inuit society, they had throat singing, which, by the way, is great curation for sexual boundary violations. Sex chakra, throat chakra. It's a sex chakra is the fertility chakra above the root. So you want to think about the lower abdomen. It's also chakra of relation. So when we think about music, then one thing is to learn from traditions to do throat singing. That can be good, and the music need to be uh, either a good expression of yin. So that means that those cultures and traditions where the voice of, let's say, a singing woman, they cannot hear it because they immediately have to, I don't know, that's not going to sustain an intergalactic situation. We're not going to be able to oppress the singing voice, especially the yin singing voice, and sustain as humanity. And also, we are going to be far more prone to falling in love. Very good sensuality practices that allow us to honor willing consent. One important place in astrology we can develop that is the middle phase of Taurus. That is 10 to 20 degree of Taurus, and that would be a good balance of the yin and yang. Um, Evolving there, it's more difficult to some people and it's more easy to some people, but this is important for humanity. Do we want to go Inuit or do we want to go Finn? That will be the difference. So even in the Western world, okay, that there's a lot to study. Um, from Finn culture, and I don't mean that Pluto square Venus there. I mean with the moon in Taurus. That would be more the issue. So I'm not talking about sex work and this and that. You're not going to have time for morality debate. You're either going to do something that's going to sustain humanity, or you're going to go down with your ego and your pride and lose your mind and soul in life as well. And so everybody knows that in time of crisis, what we need to sustain is we need to sustain a sense of connection and sovereignty. Um, and this is why Aries, that is the sign of the individual, is sextile in Aquarius, is the sign of the global community, whereas Taurus squares it because it is challenging, right? But we need to hold that tension, to hold that challenge, to sustain humanity, if we want humanity intergalactically to be a fixed thing rather than a passing trade. So that humanity is also not traded. If we learning from Nelson Mandela, who also came from for the part of I think that Elon Musk came, then Nelson Mandela tended to abolishing colonialism from his perspective, colonialism and apartheid, okay, for the racial segregation, um, by marrying a woman from another tribe and not aligning with the royalty within. This is why it was also controversial within. Learning from the colonizers what they had to teach, but also preserving what the good things were in his culture. He sat in jail, isolated place, for 28 years for doing that. So that is important because if we want to abolish apartheid intergalactically, then we would need, as humanity, to be prepared. Okay, Elon Musk, for example, is not having such optimistic faith in humanity as I am showing here, and so he's thinking slave trade. But with slave trade, everybody suffers. The reason that you wear pointed shoes, and even your sport shoes were supposed to be comfortable, don't have enough space for your toes, is the slave trade. Because when people didn't work the land, they wore the shoes that had triangular shape, and that was constricting basically their connection to the crown, whether they knew it or not. So their so-called status, being at the top of the pyramid, was costing them their ability to go intergalactically. Um, but this pertains to black people, okay, for the African people and black people as well. Um, they were prone to that. Okay, before colonialism came to Africa, those were the practices. Okay, there was trade in both white people and black people. Um, and if we don't want entire humanity to be slaves, then we need to purge slavery within us, and that means not to enslave also the genders, okay, women, men, and so on. We also need to have, well, given place for people who identify in whichever, not do any forced operations that endanger our ability to desire to live. Fertility is the fifth vital sign, and it is invisible in men. Funnily enough, invisible, we call it menstruation. And so, what our music industry, or the way we make music, needs to be in par with the spark of life, the supporting of the nervous system, all that thing that we see great people like Jaguar Wright talking about, his Puff Daddy, his associates, and so on. Those things cannot exist in the music that people hear to keep themselves alive through the journey through space. It's supposed to be like you think about you traveling I never traveled in the US, but you have sometimes only the road, the vast space, and you're like it's like you're in space basically. And the only thing you have to sustain yourself from going crazy, going in direct line, is music. So that music needs to be nourishing, and that music, okay, needs to be made in conditions that are nourishing for people say for the soul, more scientifically for your nervous system and your ability to sustain through long journeys. So thank you for listening.